Hello and welcome. My name is Robert Vasquez and you are watching Bare Bones Media. This channel is dedicated to exploring our community in Pacific County and the wider Pacific Northwest. We will be talking with public officials, entrepreneurs, and new developments in our community. If you have people that you'd like to recommend on this channel, well, feel free to leave a comment or send us an email at barebonesae@gmail.com. Today we are at the Doupe Building, right? That's how it's said?
Yes.
Doupe. And I know this is a really interesting project, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on and probably get a little tour in. Real quick, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of what's going on?
Sure. I'm Abigail Mack. I moved to Ilwaco about 5 years ago. I'd been coming to the community for more than a decade before that. Close friends grew up here, and the building became available, and it was really up my alley. I have a background in historic preservation and central city redevelopment, so they told me about the opportunity, and also it was just a great time for a transition, so I moved here and started the project.
Probably one of the biggest projects I've seen going on. How did you get into the whole historical side of things?
I was an affordable housing developer for a private nonprofit in Columbus, Ohio for about 10 years. And I also did my master's in city and regional planning at Ohio State University. And also just kind of grown up around historic housing and renovation projects. So I've done a variety, mostly single family and smaller multifamily over the years, and always, or not always, but generally for the company I worked for. But then as I transitioned my career and started doing my own thing, that's kind of, I just ended up on this route.
Do you know a bit about the history of this building?
So a lot of people know it really fondly as the Doupe Building. It was originally the Aberdeen Packing Company. It was built as kind of the company store and the town store when they opened the cannery out at the port. And so it offered everything from men and women's clothing to fishing supplies to household goods. Shortly thereafter, it was actually sold to the Doupe family. I think around 1913. It was built in the late 1800s. So the Doupe family picked it up, and it stayed in that family until about the 70s. And so that's why it's known as the Doupe Building. And we're choosing to honor that history because that's how most people in the community know of it. It was active as a store and also a hardware store, and there was even a British pub back in the mid-90s in the back of the building.
That's fun.
And it always had residential above, as far as we can tell. Of some sort, whether it was boarding house or family or just individual apartments. And also at some point in the 20s, they, if you look way back in the historical records, the museum has great documentation of the building. There used to be a wooden frame building next door that kind of had more of a Dutch roof on it. And that was there, and then there's a period of photos where there's nothing there, and then in about the 20s, the stucco building next door appeared. And so that was built, and then there's a series of additions that happened on both buildings, and they connected them. So now the Doupe Building is technically this whole site. And even across the street, actually, where the 1960s buildings are, where the cidery is opening, and the storage units, and then also where Spawnfly is, that was actually built by the Doupe family in about the 60s, and that's where they used to have the men and women's apparel section when this was more of the hardware and home goods. That's really interesting. With one of the other interviews I was doing, we were talking about it after, and I ended up meeting somebody who was, I think, part of the family that was, had this way back when. So. Joe Doupe is still a local, so he was a high school teacher up the hill, and lots of people grew up knowing the Doupe family, but he's the one that's really still around.
It's really just kind of a fascinating thing, especially coming from one of the big cities. Nobody knows anybody, nobody talks to anybody, but there's so much history and lineage in places like this, and it's really cool. You've got a number of different additions that are on this building, as well as this whole corner piece as well.
Right.
Are these all going to be part of the same space, or you have plans to develop these in different areas, or?
It'll probably be partitioned off into a couple different areas, partially for fire protection, partially just because, as you can see, it's a huge space. When I purchased the building, just this space alone had drop ceilings and was cut up into about probably 6 different rooms. There was an ice cream parlor and a kitchen and a dining area and a storage area and a hallway and a couple more spaces. And so we've spent the last 5 years gutting to stud, doing all the structural work that had to happen, replacing the roof, working on a lot of the mechanicals and things like that that are really the base.
Is this all stuff that like you're doing on your own by yourself, or you got a team of people, or?
I do all the management. I do a lot of the demolition, a lot of the finish work. Anything that's a trade, the state of Washington requires a licensed tradesman to do. I try to support our locals. So we have Ford Electric is our electrician, and then Taft Plumbing. So, I mean, anything that's trades work.
So I'm imagining there's tons of different updates that you guys got to do. I mean, it looks like it's pretty original flooring in here.
Oh, I mean, there was about 6 layers of floor on top of this. And
man.
I can say I've spent maybe half a year of my life pulling nails out of the floor.
Oh, I'm sure. And then we've got this whole loft space up here. Do you know what they use that for over the years? Or?
So the mezzanine is interesting because it was probably put in a year or 2 after the building was built. It wasn't original. They used it for storage space and display. If you look at the old photographs, there's Oriental rugs hanging over it. And everybody in the community will eagerly tell you about their memories as children with toys upstairs and all the Christmas stuff. But the really interesting stuff for me is the structure itself, that these steel rods have supported it, and you'll see it's really sturdy, and they're just draped over the floor joists above, holding it up, and then it's actually not even attached to the wall. It's floating, and so they put in this tongue and groove wall before they hung the mezzanine, and it's kind of just held up against it with pressure. So our local building inspector just is in full support of maintaining as much historic character as we can, and just said, like, I'm going to need an engineer's signature to say that this is okay and at what loads. Yeah, it's a beautiful space, and it's an awesome building, and of course, whatever you can preserve is like, it would be something else.
Today's episode of Bare Bones Media is brought to you by Beach Bubble Tea. Beach Bubble Tea is a boba shop in the heart of downtown Long Beach, Washington, where you can try a Taiwanese style of tea, which is served with a scoop of pearls. Beach Bubble Tea offers a small variety of different styles of tea, from an Assam black tea that is sweetened to a level of creaminess, to a floral jasmine topped with a lightly salted sea cream. Boba tea is a up-and-coming wave in the beverage industry, and we highly recommend you come on by, support local, and try something new at Beach Bubble Tea.
So, would you be interested in talking a little bit about some of the struggles or challenges that you guys have encountered in this whole thing? Oh, sure. I mean, first of all, it's a different location than I'm used to working in. I'm used to a big city of millions of people with a very cohesive building department that works in tandem with the utilities departments, and the electrical company would have been owned by the municipality or be private and work in partnership with them. It's a whole different beast out here. Ilwaco is a small town. We have a small administration. We have to we have to hire out city planning and city engineering because we don't have that on staff. We have to contract out attorneys. We have to contract with Long Beach on building inspection. But we have our local fire department that does some of the fire inspection, but also sometimes it's the Long Beach department. There's other challenges, just infrastructure-wise. The city lost all of its records in the 80s when they used to be stored at the fire department, and it burnt down. And so just knowing where your water lines are and what they're made of and what size is a challenge. There's all sorts of challenges with management and trying to get everybody together in any project, and whether you got a whole crew of people that you can just bring in and do stuff, or whether you got to find that crew and get them all together.
Or just go dig up and find out what kind of water line and where it is.
Let alone,
in
all the
order
other
to be able to get a bid. And then there's the challenge of we're a small community, and having contractors being able to get enough bids to know that you're paying the right price or getting the best contractor that you can for the job has been a challenge. There's, of course, on an old building, like you never know what you're going to get, and you build in contingency, but it's definitely far exceeded anything I expected.
So you haven't found any like crazy problems in structural or anything like that?
No, I mean, it's pretty solid.
It seems like
it's pretty impressive the way that they constructed the building. It's got a great foundation. As you can see, like the timber is amazing.
Everything looks really good.
Most of the issues that were anything structural was due to a neglected roof. There was 5 layers of roofing up there, some of going back to like the 40s or the 50s.
That's almost archaeology in itself there.
And there'd been a lot of water penetration at just where it connects to the exterior of the building, and because the roof slopes back, because it's a flat roof, there was a lot of damage at the back parapet walls. So we had to peel back 4 layers of roof joists and replace all of that, and then also build pony walls from the ground all the way through the second floor to support the roof at the back.
Well, I mean, for how old the building is, that's pretty good to.
It is. I mean, there's always, every time you open something, you find something else.
I'm sure.
But,
I'm sure.
In general, it's pretty impressive. There's a lot of steel reinforcement in the building, so they set the joists on a steel plate, on top of the brick wall, and then put tie rods through in order to hold the joists to the wall, and that's really what was preserving most of the structure.
That's good. This seems pretty solid. You don't seem like you have a lot of sloping or anything like that.
No.
I know that I had somebody asking, but you have a really cool sweater hanging out.
You can always. So we have sweatshirts and hats available, and T-shirts. I'm not open as a business, so Ship Records and More is great. So you can stop by anytime they're open and pick up a sweater, a sweatshirt, or a hoodie. Also, the museum across the street carries them, and then if something's out in the size you want, just message us and we'll order them. And everybody always asks why the little cherub face, and if you look really carefully above the center windows on the building, there's this little cherub that's been up there. And if you look in all the historic photos, it's always been there.
That's cool. Where can people get connected and see what you're doing and perhaps get involved or something?
Right now, because we're in a state of construction, it's I'm not at the point where I'm giving public tours. We might get there later on, maybe in the summer of next year. I'm hoping.
Hopefully this will suffice for now. So
So the museum has a lot of information on it, and they've also done some videos as well with. They did a youth production where they follow the history of Ilwaco. So there's some information there. Facebook and Instagram are the best place to find out what we're doing on a weekly basis, if there's anything cool happening. And then, I'd of course encourage anybody to get involved with the Downtown Ilwaco Revitalization Committee, which is a committee of folks that have formed to try to help encourage development in our downtown commercial district.
And perhaps we'll get a chance to talk with them in the future.
And I'll probably have some events and things moving forward to fundraise, because we're starting to find a lot more challenges that I wasn't ready for.
And that wraps up our interview for today on Bare Bones Media. I really hope that you enjoyed it. And if you have people that you would like to see on this channel, well, leave a comment or send us an email at barebonesae@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.